The sky above Ilaria was not blue anymore. It was gray, broken by drifting smoke and flashes of red light. For centuries, Ilaria had been called the Singing World, a peaceful planet known for its crystal lakes and soft-lit towers. Music once floated through the air, carried by gentle winds that never hurt anyone. But all of that was gone now. The Vorn Dominion had come. Their ships filled the sky like a black storm. They were not interested in peace or beauty. They wanted control. They wanted slaves. The Illyrian army had tried to resist, but their weapons were weak. The Vorn's machines burned cities faster than anyone could count. From the high tower of the capital city, Princess Lyra Velen watched her world fall apart. Her long silver hair was tangled with dust, her royal dress torn. She stood beside the old communication console, the last working one in the palace. Soldiers and engineers had already fallen trying to keep the signal alive. Her advisor, Terran, shook his head in despair. "Your Highness, we have sent the message to the Union worlds, but there is no answer. Their fleets are busy. Their council is still discussing." Lyra's heart sank. "Discussing," she whispered. "While my people die?" Terran's eyes lowered. "Yes, Princess. They say intervention might disturb the balance." Lyra clenched her fists. For her, there was no balance left to disturb. The screams outside told her that much. She turned back to the console. Static crackled across the screen. The signal was weak, but it was all she had left. She pressed the transmit button, her voice trembling but clear. "To whoever can hear this, this is Princess Lyra, Velen of Ilaria. Our world is under attack by the Vorn Dominion. We ask for help. Any help. Please, our people are dying." Her words echoed into the empty sky, carried by a fading signal across millions of light years. Then the console flickered and went dark. Power failure. Lyra fell to her knees, tears rolling down her cheeks. She had done everything she could. All that remained was silence and the sound of distant explosions, far across the galaxy. Beyond the borders of the Celestial Union, a small blue-green planet spun quietly in the darkness. It was old, battered, and scarred by countless wars of its own. But the people who lived there had learned something the rest of the galaxy had not: how to survive anything. The world was called Earth. The distress signal from Ilaria reached a Terran outpost hidden on the edge of the Sol. Systema listening post, manned by a handful of humans who still watched the stars. The Union had long ago labeled Earth a Category 12 Death World, too hostile, too unpredictable, too dangerous for life. They had stopped sending visitors centuries ago, but humans didn't die out. They adapted. They endured storms, hunger, and even their own mistakes. They turned survival into strength inside the outpost. Captain Elias Ward stared at the flickering message that had just appeared on his screen. The signal was weak, full of static, but one voice came through, a voice begging for help. "Ilaria," he murmured, scrolling through old star maps. "Never heard of it." Beside him, his second-in-command, Lieutenant Sarah Lowe, frowned. "Another Union world in trouble. They won't lift a finger for them." Elias leaned back in his chair, thinking. His uniform was old and scarred, the symbol of the Terran Frontier Defense Corps stitched on one shoulder. The corps had been created long after humanity stopped fighting each other. Their goal was simple: protect anyone who couldn't protect themselves. He turned to Sarah, "Prep the Resolute Dawn. We're going." Sarah blinked. "Captain Ilaria is deep in Union territory. We'll be violating about 50 treaties." Elias gave a tired smile. "Then we'll bring extra paper to pay the fines." The small outpost came alive. Engines roared, systems powered up, and the Resolute Dawn, a dark gray warship built from human hands, lifted from the dock. Its hull was thick and rough, covered in repair, scars ugly compared to the sleek ships of the Union, but strong as iron. Within hours, the Dawn jumped to warp. Its destination, a world crying for help. Back on Ilaria, the situation grew worse. The Vorn had reached the capital. Black-armored soldiers marched through the streets, rounding up survivors. Fires burned everywhere. Painting the silver towers red. Princess Lyra and a handful of guards hid in the lower levels of the palace. The air smelled of smoke and melted stone. Terran's voice trembled. The Vorn are closing in. We must surrender. They may spare the royal line. Lyra shook her head fiercely. They do not spare anyone. Then, without warning, the ground shook. The sound was not the Vorn's usual weaponry. It was deeper, heavier, like thunder from the stars. The guards froze. Outside, the sky ripped open. From the clouds emerged ships unlike any seen before, dark, angular, moving with deliberate purpose. The Vorn warships turned their cannons upward, confused. The new arrivals bore no Union symbols, no known markings, only a single emblem, a human hand holding a burning star. The lead Vorn ship opened fire. Blue energy bolts streaked toward the newcomers. For a moment, the sky became a storm. But the human ships didn't flinch. Their armor absorbed the blasts and returned. Fire with terrifying precision. Massive tungsten shells tore through the Vorn fleet, explosions lighting up the heavens. The noise was deafening. In less than an hour, the Vorn air dominance was gone. From the palace ruins, Lyra watched in disbelief. Who are they? She whispered. Her question was answered when a new signal broke through her communicator, loud and clear. This is Captain Elias Ward of the Terran Defense Corps. To any survivors on Alaria, hold your positions. Help has arrived. Lyra's breath caught. Humans. She whispered. The Deathworlders. Terran stared at her. Impossible. The Union said they were extinct. Apparently not, she murmured. When the human dropships touched down, the ground trembled again. Metal hatches opened, and figures in heavy armor stepped out. Their suits were rough and black, covered in dust and scratches. They carried tools, medical packs, and strange box-shaped weapons, but they didn't look like conquerors. They looked like people who had seen too many battles and still refused to give up. Captain Elias Ward led the first team himself. His boots crunched on the broken tiles as he looked around at the ruins. He saw the burned flags, the collapsed towers, and the frightened faces hiding behind shattered walls. He spoke softly into his helmet mic. Secure the area. Search for civilians. We're not leaving anyone behind. When he found Princess Lyra, she was helping lift debris from a trapped child. Her royal insignia was hidden, her hands covered in ash. She looked up as his shadow fell over her. For a long moment, they just stared at each other, the princess of a dying world and the soldier from a world everyone feared. Lyra spoke first. You're human. Elias nodded. You sent a call for help. You came. Of course we did, he said simply. Someone had to. It was the first time she smiled in weeks. The days that followed were chaos. The humans worked with mechanical efficiency. They repaired generators, set up water filters, and built field hospitals. Their machines roared through the streets, clearing rubble. While drones carried food from orbit, the Alarian survivors watched in silence at first, frightened of their new saviors. Everyone had heard stories about Earth's a wild planet where even the trees tried to kill you. The Deathworlders were supposed to be savages, but these people were calm and organized. They never shouted, never struck anyone, and always shared their supplies. Lyra walked among them every day, learning. Humans didn't use much ceremony. They worked side by side with soldiers and civilians alike. Even Elias ate the same rations as everyone else. One evening, she found him sitting alone outside a half-rebuilt shelter, repairing a damaged drone. The sky was dark, filled with smoke and faint stars. You could have ignored us, she said quietly. The Union did. Elias didn't look up. We heard your message. That was enough. But why risk your lives for strangers? He tightened a screw on the drone and shrugged. Because once we were the ones crying for help, no one came for us. So now, we go for others. His words stayed with her long after she left. By the fourth day, the Vorn regrouped for a counterattack. Their ground forces moved toward the city ruins and armored convoys. The humans met them head-on, not with overwhelming numbers, but with strategy. They used drones to distract, smoke to blind, and terrain to their advantage. Every human squad moved like a single organism, covering each other, never leaving anyone exposed. It wasn't about glory or victory. It was about keeping people alive. When the last Vorn vehicle burned out, the survivors fled into the mountains. Ilaria was free again, at least for now. But the humans didn't celebrate. They stayed busy, patching wounds, clearing wreckage, and preparing evacuation plans for the week. Elias himself carried injured children to the med bay. He didn't smile much, but his eyes softened when they thanked him. Princess Lyra watched everything from the palace steps. For the first time, she understood why the galaxy feared Earth. It wasn't their strength that made them. Terrifying it was their determination. They didn't conquer for wealth or pride. They fought only when there was no other way. And when they did, nothing could stop them. That night, Lyra stood with Elias on a balcony overlooking the ruined city. The wind carried the faint scent of metal and rain. "Your people are remarkable," she said softly. "You rebuild, even while everything burns." Elias looked at the stars. "That's what we do best. Earth teaches you that if you stop moving, you die. So we don't stop." Lyra smiled faintly. "The Union will not be pleased when they learn, you see." The fires of Ilaria slowly faded. Days passed, and the smoke above the silver towers began to clear. The air still smelled of dust and melted metal. But for the first time in many months, sunlight reached the streets again. The Vorn Dominion had been driven away. Their warships were gone, their soldiers scattered. And at the heart of the victory stood a truth no one in the galaxy would have believed: the Deathworlders of Earth had come. The humans had left as suddenly as they arrived, vanishing into the stars like ghosts. But the marks they left behind remained. Princess Lyra Velen walked through the capital's ruins every morning, checking on the rebuilding efforts. Human machines still stood where they had landed, automated builders working endlessly. The Ilarian people had learned how to use them. Children played near the rebuilt water fountains, laughing for the first time in months. But not all laughter could hide the pain. The war had taken too much every night. Lyra would climb to the top of the Citadel's tower, the same place where she had sent her desperate call for help. The stars looked closer now, as if listening. She always found herself whispering, "Thank you, Deathworlders," wherever you are. Far away, aboard the Terran ship Resolute Dawn, Captain Elias Ward watched the same stars from his command seat. The crew had been silent for days, their thoughts still on the world they had left behind. Lieutenant Sarah Lowe entered quietly, handing him a datapad. "Reports from Ilaria, sir. The rebuild is going well. Civilian losses are lower than expected." Elias nodded slowly. "Good. They deserve peace." Sarah hesitated before speaking again. "The Union isn't happy, though. Their council sent a message, an official complaint. They're calling us interfering aggressors." Elias gave a dry smile. "They always find new names for people who actually do something. They're even debating sanctions against Earth," she added. He shrugged. "Let them debate. While they talk, we'll keep saving lives." Sarah studied him for a moment. "You know, the crew calls you the captain who broke the silence. They think you've started something bigger than any mission." Elias turned back to the window. "Maybe. But it's not about breaking silence. It's about remembering who we are." On Ilaria, the humans' actions spread like a storm of rumors through the galaxy. Every news network, every council chamber, every imperial court was talking about it. The Union called it a dangerous precedent. The Vorn called it an insult. But for billions of ordinary people across the stars, it was something else entirely. It was hope. On border worlds where farmers lived under pirate threats, on mining colonies forgotten by the Union, whispers began. The humans came for Ilaria. Maybe they'll come for us too. Lyra received messages from neighboring systems, desperate worlds asking how to reach the Deathworlders. She wanted to help them all, but she didn't even know where Earth was. Humans had given no address, no promise, no contact frequency. They had simply saved Ilaria and vanished. Her heart ached for their silence. One night, As she looked over the half-repaired capital, her advisor Terran approached quietly. They left behind a message. "Your Highness," he said, handing her a small black device. It was hidden in one of their aid crates. It took us days to decode. Lyra's hands trembled as she activated it. A hologram flickered to life. Captain Elias Ward's calm face appeared, his eyes tired but kind. "If you're watching this, then your world stands again. That's all we wanted. You don't owe us anything. Just remember what strength looks like when you stand together. That's the real gift humanity can give. If your people ever face darkness again, don't look to the stars for heroes. Become them." The message ended, leaving only silence. Terran spoke softly. "He believed in us, Princess." Lyra nodded, her eyes shining. "Then we will not disappoint him." Over the next few months, Illyria rebuilt faster than anyone thought possible. With human blueprints, they constructed new power grids, defensive shields, and food farms that could feed millions. For the first time, the Illyrian government no longer relied on the slow-moving Union. They stood on their own. But success attracted attention. The Union Council, made of 12 alien races, gathered in a grand hall of marble and light. At the center, High Chancellor Varin, a tall insectoid being with silver eyes, slammed his claw against the table. "These humans have crossed into Union territory without permission," he declared. "They have interfered with protected systems. If we allow this, chaos will spread." A representative from the small colony of Rallos spoke up timidly. "But the humans saved Ilaria when we did nothing. Shouldn't we thank them?" The Chancellor's voice turned cold. "We maintain order through rules. If every Deathworlder begins helping whoever they please, we will have anarchy." In the shadows of the hall, a quiet voice whispered, "Or maybe we will have compassion." It came from Ambassador Tehran, the Illyrian envoy. She rose slowly. "You call them dangerous? Yet they gave without asking for anything. You call them reckless, but they saved lives while your fleets debated." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some agreed. Some shouted her down. But the seed of doubt was planted. Meanwhile, aboard the Resolute Dawn, the humans were already answering another call. A mining colony at the edge of the rim had gone silent. As the crew prepared for warp, Elias received an encrypted transmission. When he opened it, the holographic image of Princess Lyra appeared, her eyes bright, her voice steady. "Captain Ward, this is Lyra Velen of Illyria. I don't know if this message will reach you. The galaxy is changing because of what you did. You gave us more than rescue. You gave us courage. I hope one day we can stand beside you, not as those who needed saving, but as allies." Elias smiled faintly. "She's learning fast," he murmured. Sarah grinned. "Maybe she'll teach the Union what real leadership looks like." The ship jumped into the dark once more. Months turned into a year. Across the galaxy, small miracles began to happen. A pirate blockade over the colony Venner. Prime broke apart when a human relief ship arrived unannounced. On the frozen world Hexstar, a handful of Terran engineers repaired an alien habitat after an earthquake. No one asked for money. No one claimed territory. The message was clear. The Deathworlders of Earth would help anyone, anywhere. But not everyone was grateful. The Vorn Dominion, humiliated by their defeat on Ilaria, plotted revenge. In their Black Fortress world, Vorn commanders argued around a table of molten steel. "They made us look weak," one hissed. "The humans must pay." "They are few," another growled, "but their courage infects others. It must be erased before it spreads." Orders were given. A fleet of Vorn warships began to move toward Ilaria again, this time larger than before. When Lyra received the report, the new Illyrian defense network, designed with Terran blueprints, was ready. She gathered her generals in the rebuilt Citadel Hall. "We may not have the strength of the humans," she said firmly, "but we have their spirit, and we will not bow again." The Illyrian soldiers saluted. Every one of them wore a small patch on their armor, a human hand gripping a star. It was their symbol of hope. When the Vorn fleet arrived, expecting fear, they found resistance. The new defense shields held strong. Planetary cannons fired tungsten rounds, a Terran invention. Even so, the Vorn had overwhelming numbers. Within hours, the outer defenses began to fail. Lyra stood in the command center, giving orders, refusing to leave her post. Evacuate the civilians first. If we fall, let it be protecting them. Operators nodded, their faces pale but determined. Then, just as the main power grid started to flicker, an officer shouted, "New contacts, multiple warp signatures incoming." Lyra's heart stopped. "Union reinforcements?" "No, ma'am," the officer whispered, eyes wide. "They bear the Terran emblem." Stars above Ilaria exploded with light. The Resolute Dawn led a fleet of 6 Terran ships, all built from hard steel and determination. They dropped from warp in perfect formation, their hulls glowing red from re-entry heat. Through the comms came a voice she knew well. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the Terran Defense Corps. Thought you could use a hand." Lyra laughed through her tears. "You always come at the last moment." "It's a habit," Elias replied. The Vorn fleet turned to face the newcomers. Once again, the sky filled with fire. The humans didn't fight for glory, they fought to protect. Their ships weaved between enemy lines, hitting weak points, shielding Ilarian vessels when needed. In the capital, people cheered as burning Vorn wreckage fell from the heavens like dark rain. Hours later, silence returned. The Vorn fleet was gone. Ilaria celebrated for days. The streets filled with lights and music again. Children carried paper flags showing both the Ilarian crest and the Terran star hand symbol at the royal balcony. Princess Lyra stood beside Captain Elias Ward as the people chanted below. "You shouldn't have come back," she said softly. "The Union will hate you even more," Elias smiled. "They already do. But your people called, and we answered. That's all that matters." She looked up at him. "You could rule half the galaxy with the loyalty you inspire." He shook his head. "We don't rule, we help. Power changes hands. Kindness lasts longer." She nodded slowly, eyes bright with admiration. "Then perhaps one day the galaxy will follow your example." Elias looked out over the crowd. "Maybe one day they won't need us anymore. That's the goal." Weeks later, the Resolute Dawn prepared to leave once again. The humans never stayed where peace already lived. They chased the cries of the next world in need.